All right, I think it's time to get started with this week's webinar. I hope you're just about as excited as I am on the SAP EM 9.0 functionality. It's long overdue, so let's get into it. First of all, there's a little question bar in the GoToMeeting bar on the right-hand side. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions in there. I have it up on my screen, so if you have a question on a particular slide, please by all means type it in there, and we'll see if we can address it there and then. If not, we'll tackle it certainly at the end, and if we can't get through the questions at the end, then we'll certainly follow up with you after the webinar. If you're interested in the topic of event management like we are, there are a couple of places that you can go through in the social media world. You can follow us on Twitter at BusinessMaturity. We do some of our posts regarding event management, have that handle hashtag #QData_EM, so you can search for some of our posts that way. On Facebook we have a specific event management page. So if you go to facebook.com/SAP Event Management, we've got lots of posts up there, and we make sure that basically all the posts that we're making out there talking about new OSS nodes and new features that are found, tips and tricks and stuff like that, is all actually mentioned out there on that Facebook page. There's a LinkedIn, we have a LinkedIn page for QData. You can have a look through there, 129971. Also, we have there's a good SAP Event Management LinkedIn group up there too. So again, we'll make sure that the postings go up there too, as well as on Facebook. And then we have a blog, qdatausa.wordpress.com, where we also have a separate section on SAP Event Management, and from there you can actually download some papers as well on event management. So this week is our second of 4 webinar sessions. So every Thursday at this time we usually give webinars out there on certain topics. So for the month of October we are dealing with event management. Last week we went through an introduction to event management for those folks who weren't too familiar with what it was and what it can do for you. This week just want to introduce some of the SAP EM 9.0 functionality. And before I get started, I'll just say, I'm actually sitting here in a hotel room out in San Jose. The internet connectivity is not so secure out here too, so I won't be able to go into the system to demo it, but we have both a 9 and a 7 system that I'd like to be able to demo side by side. So I do want to offer the folks that are on the webinar, just contact us afterwards, send me an email, and we'll gladly set up a separate session with you, and we'll go through the system, hand in hand. You can ask the specific questions, but it's very good to have one system up in one side of the screen and then the other one on the other side, and you can actually see the differences between the two systems. So I'm going to throw that out immediately to you. If you want to see the two, just contact us and we'll go through that. Next week we're going to go through some interesting use case studies that we've been involved in and we've seen other folks use event management for. We've seen several companies save several tens of millions of dollars through just the deployment of event management and its unique capabilities of finding exceptions, tying a process together and doing things on time. So be sure to log in for that one to have a look. The last session is going to be a completely new one. SAP has sort of bundled a few of these products together, and they're calling it SAP's Track and Trace solution. So we're going to go through, what is all entailed within that. So we're talking about event management, auto ID infrastructure. We're talking about object event repository, and lastly, global batch traceability. So, we'll put each one of those in context and run through some of the details on each one of those. For those of you who like this particular webinar or missed out on last week's webinar or potentially want to make next week's one, go onto our website, qdatausa.com, click on resources. There's previously recorded webinars. Click on that and you'll see be able to download this webinar, last week's webinar, so you won't miss anything over there. This webinar should be up there probably by tomorrow afternoon. On the left-hand side is where you would have registered for this particular one, so you can have a look to see what's coming. All right, so let's get into some of the functionality here on 9.0. And I'd say that the session is going to last about a half an hour, and that's about it, where we go through the 9.0 functionality. But once again, if you want to see these two systems side by side, then just give us a call and we'll set that up. One thing to know with SAP 9.0, it's a brand new application that has come out, and that would make the third new front end for event management since it started out. When SAP Event Management 4.0 came out, it was using the web communication layer, the WCL, sort of a separate little Java little app that you had to store, and that was the web UI interface to the event management functionality. Then along came 5, and that was a Web Vim Pro functionality, and that's currently what's out there all the way to 7.01, so version 7, Enhancement Pack 1. But with 9, it's a completely redeveloped app, so it's not an enhancement of the previous one, it's a brand new application out there. It is modeled on the floor plan manager functionality that has come out, so there's a lot of functionality that's in 9.0 now that is purely just standard floor plan manager type functionality, which is pretty cool too, and we'll go through some of that functionality now. And because it's a new app developed on this new floor plan manager, we had a quantum leap in terms of usability pieces on the 9.0 piece. 9.0 also introduced the Geo-map component, so if we look at the little screen there on the right-hand side, that is what the new UI looks like. That map, it's again, you can plug in and configure in the back end whatever mapping service provider that you have, but you do need to obviously license that if the use of the map and the data that you're putting on the map is licensable, if that's such a word. But there's some functionality that you can just plot on a Google map or a Bing map, for example, and there's no charge. You can use the standard free API to actually execute that type of functionality. But if you want to track trucks and your fleet, as they move throughout your organization, that comes with the licensing fee. SAP or Google's going to want to get more of a commercial license out of you for that. But that's completely outside of SAP, and you can configure exactly which mapping provider you want to use over there. The web UI changes, we're going to go through that in some detail. It's a complete major overhaul, and it's a well-welcomed change over there. In terms of functionality, the only functionality change was they introduced new TM visibility processes into event management, so I wouldn't say that's actually functionality changes. EM didn't really gain any new functionality changes, but they certainly gained some new visibility scenarios. So if you're implementing TM together with EM, then there's some, there's some quick solutions for you that's out of the box that you can plug in and then tweak them to fit into your organizations. That came with a 9.0 piece, so that's pretty good. Another thing to mention, since the 9.0 release, it has been certified to be able to run on top of HANA, so that's another consideration for those folks out there. It's not a specific release EM that is built for HANA. It's just this particular release will run on HANA as long as you have the right versions of HANA and so forth. But this is a release that will run on HANA. In terms of an upgrade path, you can see down on the little screen on the left at the bottom that you can pretty much upgrade from anyone. They've given you an upgrade path from 5.1, 7.0, 7.0 Enhancement Pack 1, and then also the 7.0 on NetWeaver 7.01. Okay. Two things to note over there, the required versions, Enhancement Pack 1 for NetWeaver 7.3, or if you're on 7.0, then you need Enhancement Pack 3 for that NetWeaver stack. So you need to at least be on one of those, So if you're going with a brand new installation of event management, then I would definitely suggest let's go with NetWeaver 7.3 Enhancement Pack 1 and go from there. But the more commonly used one out there that's been out there for a while now, NetWeaver 7.0, you want to make sure that at least you've got it up to Enhancement Pack 3 before you can go ahead and install EM 9.0. All right. So let's just look a little bit more under the hood on the Geo-map side, and I'll show you a little bit about how we go about configuring that, because that's the only real new functionality that was added to EM in 9.0. The rest is the same, so I'll go through that in a little bit more detail in the coming slides. But Geo-maps is made available through another component that SAP's provided. I would say it's still a little bit new. I would use it with hesitation. We just went live with a client. I believe it's the first one using it the way that we're using it last week down in Australia. They're tracking their trucks and with GPS coordinates in the trucks, so they actually can get the breadcrumbs following the trucks. And we had quite a few challenges in the visual business world. It's still pretty new. Not too many things you can change in that. So what you see is what you get for the most part. There's some tweaking you can do, but there's still some issues around that. But also, with that being said, when it's a newish product like that, then you get some pretty good support from SAP. So I can say nothing bad about that. They jumped on top of it. Even this morning, it was 1 o'clock my time. They were discussing it down in Australia to get the last few issues resolved. So some very good support coming down when it's early on in the product's life cycle. In terms of the functionality that it has, if you've got event handlers, and let's say you've got 10 event handlers that you're looking at in event management, and you select those 10, what it allows you to do on the map is it will show you the last known event with coordinates on a map, right? So let's say, for example, you're tracking your fleet of 10 trucks. If you were to select those 10 trucks, it will show you the last coordinates sent into event management, so you can get a visual look and feel as to exactly where your trucks are at that point in time and what's the status of those trucks, whether it's in operation, resting, whatever the statuses are that you want to show on the map. If you then select one of those trucks, so now we just select the one event handler, the map will then change to show you all of the events that have been received for that particular event handler that have coordinates against them, obviously. Okay, so if you've shown that the truck has checked out of the depot, that it is left to go to the first customer, it's arrived at the first customer, it's unloaded, the thing, and then it potentially picked up something, so it's loaded, now it's left the customer, it's on its way to the next one. It will show you those events and plot them on the map for you. One thing it doesn't show you is the planned events. So that's one of the enhancements that we made to the system that went last week. Is we'd like to be able to see the expected events, because we know the location that those expected events should occur in. Behind the master date of a location sits the geo coordinates, so we should be able to plot that on the map. So it wasn't too big a deal to get that out there, but it's still customizing through a baddie. But then it would be nice to be able to show this is where you've been, and this is where you're going, and these are the times that are associated with that. So that's, I think, pretty rich functionality to be able to show. This Geo-map component, the visual business piece, was released also with TM8, so it's the same functionality. If you've seen the transportation management Geo-map, it's the same functionality, using the same thing. In fact, TM is also using a lot of the floor plan manager functionality too. So the two solutions are really getting closer to each other, and the look and feel is actually pretty similar now. Okay. From a web UI change, and we'll go through each one of these in more detail, but just to give you a quick overview of what's coming up. The movable UI elements, so we're talking about the user interface, so we're talking about panels and tabs over there. You can grab that map and just drag it and drop it at the bottom over there. You can click and hide it, so it becomes more of a personalization piece, as opposed to what you see is what you get. In the WCL world and the WebDim Pro that you currently have in 7.0, what you design is what everybody gets, and there's very little customization. So now it's if someone doesn't want to see the map, just hide it. Suppression of pop-up windows, so that's one of the pet peeves of everybody that's out there. It doesn't matter what EM release you're using right now. Once you start to click on things, then a new window pops up and says, all right, you're going to a new event handler over here, or depending on how far back you're going, like if you're in 5.0, here's all of the events, and they're in a separate window, and you just get these big mess of windows as you navigate through your event management system. With this new UI, for the most part, it's all in the same window, and it just pops up in different tabs or different UI element boxes at the end of the day. The only time you would go up or get a pop-up window is if you were navigating from one event handler to another event handler, then the new one would actually pop up in a box. Or if you need to select from a multiple list of event handlers before you get to that box, then that would be a pop-up too. So the pop-ups now make sense as opposed to just being annoying. Auto-collapsing of the selection attributes, this is a good one too. In the past, that selection screen, you could have quite a few selection options out there, and that could take up your whole screen. And so as soon as you do the select, then all your list results are down below the screen, and you have to now scroll below to go look through that. And then when you click on those, then the detail comes in below that. And if you want to now filter that and maybe change your selection screen, you've got to go to the top again, change it, and then search, and then, so it was just a big mess. With this new one over here, you can just configure to say, auto-collapse that, into a separate panel. So now you could have a tab that has your selection criteria, and as soon as you say search, a separate tab pops up right next to that with your search results, so you can just easily toggle from one to the other. And if you don't have it as a tag, it will just collapse it so that they will have a little tree structure above your selection results. And if you want to see it again, you just click on the little arrow and it will expand it to say, all right, well, here's your selection criteria, so you can easily hide it. So it's good functionality there. Display of detailed attributes in columns. So this is another one we used to have to fiddle around with joining two attributes together or just giving the icon name. Now you can actually start to join, have the meaning, the icon and the meaning right next to each other in the same field, which is good. Another big thing that was introduced again because of Floor Plan Manager was time zone personalization. So folks, we receive events from all over the world, different time zones, and it gets stored in event management with those time zones, and then it normalizes it against UTC time and stores it in the database that way. As long as we've defined our field as a time-relevant field and we're storing the time zone, then with this functionality, if I'm sitting in Germany, I can say, hey, I want to look at all of my time in CET, so Central European time. That's what I want to see. It doesn't matter if the event happened in China or Brazil. I'm going to look at it at normalized to my time, so I can set that setting, and that's the way it is. I can keep it the way that event management has it, so I can do that, and then I can also look at it in my personal, my user default time, right? So I can set it to someone else's time, Eastern Standard Time, or I can use my own time, which is Pacific Standard Time, as an example. Dynamic external URLs, this makes it possible for us to click on like a tracking number and jump out to a UPS or a FedEx site to see the detail over there, which is pretty cool, and that's just configuration now. Text wrap, so this gives us more flexibility. This makes the screen a little bit more readable. So if you've got long fields over here, you can still make the column somewhat smaller so that you can get the rest of the information in, and all it will do is wrap the text around and what you'd sort of expect from an application, right? So let's go see a little bit what these screens look like. The movable drop and drop panels, let's just talk about that one. So if we look at this screen that we have in front of us, if you look at the top, we've got two tabs. We've got a search and a search result. Down behind the short list, in-place lists, behind there we've got our event messages, and right at the bottom we've got our details behind the icon text in one column. So we've got those three panels on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side we've got the map component. And so there's sort of four areas, and you can configure each one of these. You can either have two columns or you can have three columns to display. You can grab the map to the bottom. You can put the details on the right-hand side. It's whatever's important to you, right? So if you're not interested in the map or you haven't even configured the map because you do need geo coordinates, before that even makes sense, you clearly wouldn't even put the map out there if you didn't have that. So a nice view, for example, that a lot of folks have is the search and the search result up at the top, much like we have over there. Then immediately following that would be maybe the event messages piece. So that would be the third column down. And then on the right-hand side would be the details. So on this particular screen, we have the details as the second column or on the left-hand side over there, which says forwarding order, freight unit, and so forth. But typically that would be on the right-hand side. So then if I have a look at my search result, that's all my event handlers. It would select the top event handler, show me all my events right below that, and on the right-hand side would be my details. So it would give me all my detail for if like this is a forwarding order scenario. So it shows me my shipper, my consignee, what's my locations, bill of lading number, all of that information is then on the right-hand side, and I can have the big list. So on one screen, I get it all. All right. In terms of the tabs, for example, there you can see search and search results. You can tab any of these windows, right? So you want to obviously bring the windows out so from behind a tab if they're important, but if they're less important and sometimes you want to see it, then maybe just hide it behind a second tab. So for example, right at the bottom of this screen is the event details one. So we've got highlighted on our screen the departure event. On the very bottom over there, those are the details of the departure event. Now, most of that actually is shown in your list view anyway, but maybe there's a few other things in there. The city, I can see the city, the country. That's actually not on the list over there. So maybe I want to see that. So put that behind the event messages as a detail. So if you click on one and click on the tab, and there it is. It's ready for you. Let's go through some of those. So the movable panels, we've spoken about that. We talk about a short list, in-place lists. Okay, so on the left-hand side, we've got there, for example, freight order. You can see two freight orders. And then there's a show overview. So let me just highlight this. So this is where I'm at right now. That show overview, you can actually define, okay, how many events, if there's multiple of them, do I want to show on the screen before I hit my show overview, right? So over here, for example, we've configured 2. So if we've got anything more than 2, it's just going to show you the first 2 and then the rest. So let's say you've got serial numbers. I may want to show, I know that like on average I have 10 serial numbers out there. I could set it to 10, but 10 is taking up quite a bit of space, on the UI. So, the more space you put up there, the less space for other attributes to show. So configure something like 5, and then so it will show the first 5, and then you can click on the more, and it will just then expand that little particular area to show the rest of them. The dynamic URL, this little piece over here, you see it's linkable. So again, in the back end, that's my container. That's going to go out to my, my freight forwarder, or someone else is transporting this truck, and they're giving me further statuses on those. I can click through that and go over there. So if you've got your own web application that you can maybe pass a particular parameter or a value through to, you can easily link out to your own web page out there and go for that. Okay, so we talk about the next thing there, multi multi-column detail panels. If we look at the details there, we've got now 4 columns next to each other. So I think that also makes a big deal. In previously, it was 1 column in your detail, and that was it. So again, if you wanted to show maybe 30, 40 items in your detail, it was one long list, you know, and by the time you got to the bottom, you couldn't even see the events anymore. The events were on. But over here, for example, you can see we've got 20, just easily over here. Actually, there's more. If 24 that you can fit on a screen like that, 6 in each column, 24 attributes that are shown up there, as well as all of our events are shown there, and even some event detail at the bottom. So we've got ample room to actually show quite a bit of detail on this, because now we've got the columns. And it's as easy to configure as the previous one. So previously, in our display profile, you would just say, this is my sorting order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it didn't have. Now they've just added one more column in that configuration, and it says which column. So now you basically say, or basically which row, you know. So it's row 1, position 1, row 1, position 2, row 1, position 3, row 1, position 4, and that's how you do that. So it's pretty easy. We spoke about it, the embedded map. The next one, text wrap. It's just, if it doesn't fit on the page, it will actually just wrap out onto the second line, which is not a big deal. Configurable column width. Again, you know, so some of these columns are basically, you know, if it's defined as 20, but there's only the data only takes up 5, you can configure it actually just to auto fit that functionality. And again, just straight out of the box floor plan manager type functionality. The time zones that we're talking about, so Central European time. Again, you can choose to put your own ones in there and look at it in your time. Down here is an example of what we'd call about the icon in text thing. Doesn't seem like a big deal unless you've used event management before, but in the past you'd have to have 2 columns, one for the icon, the second one for the description, and the descriptions are often, you know, long, but the 2 of them mean, you know, are the same thing. You know, they belong together, so they finally actually put them together like this. So that was also a good enhancement for SAP. All right, so on to the next screen over here. The auto collapse, just a quick example of exactly what it looks like. So there, if on the left-hand side there behind this the screen on the right, if you have your selection screen, so you've chosen your tracking scenario, so you get all your selection screen. As soon as you hit the search button, the search, that screen that you're looking at there becomes a tab on the left-hand side, and the search result then is displayed. And the way SAP works now with this particular app, it automatically highlights the first event handler, which brings up all the, you know, again, if you configure to see the event messages out there, it will show you all the event messages. It will also then automatically select the first event message. So if you're displaying your event details, also on the right-hand side, it will then show you that detail. So they've sort of assumed that the first one is the one that you're looking for. So a lot of that, if you're actually looking for a specific sales order and you click on that, there's no further clicking. You're there immediately, and you've got all the detail, you know, at hand. You know, obviously, if you're doing a search based on your status, you know, show me all my orders that are on credit hold right now, and you can come back with 100 orders. You know, it's going to select the first one. You know, that's not so useful. But if a customer's calling up and saying, "Hey, show me, you know, what's happening with my order 1, 2, 3," with that entering in 1, 2, 3, I'm done. I can get all my detail on the next screen. So that's a pretty cool piece of functionality. Okay, so here's talking a little bit about some of the functionality we spoke about, but here's the little screen where we do that configuration, the time zone piece, as well as how many entries we want in our in-place detail display. So time zone settings, there's the user time zone, individual time zone. So my user time zone is, you know, it's a specific, my own personal default. Individual time zone is, all right, let's go put whatever we need out there, and then the original time zone is whatever the event came in as. Collapse search panel after search, that's an option. Some people want to see the search selection screen out there all the time, but for the most part, people are going to just hit that one that's checked and say, once we've searched, I now want to focus. I want to get the screen size. I want to get that all for my search results, not for my search entry screen. And there's render up to end places, items in place. That's if I've got 10 in there, for example, show me 10 serial numbers, but the 11th onwards would have to be clicked with the show me more. There's an example of the dynamic URL. Clicking on that takes you to an external website, easily enough to configure. The Geo-map configuration through Visual Business. So just a few comments over here too. That Visual Business, as I said, it's relatively new. It's a nice fun piece to have. Definitely make sure that there's some business value before you go down that path. There's some tweaking to be done there. There is a transaction that every user needs to run on their machine to enable it. Right now it's not fully transportable right now, so you have to run a transaction to load your certificate on each client that you're going to use it on, and then it gets enabled. So it's a little challenge also for deploying. Okay, so visually over here, what we're seeing here, latest position for each event handler. So if there's, over here we can see there's a truck up there in Rotterdam, and then there's one down over here near Salzburg, and there's actually two down over there. So it shows you where they are. If there's two at the same location, then it will list them out at that same time, and you can see the details for that. When you say show the details, then elsewhere on the screen, it will show you all the events, the details, and stuff like that, as though you've just searched on it from Event Handler here. So this screen over here would be, showing you that. So on the left-hand side is whatever you selected on in the map, it will show you that detail on the left-hand side. And this is what it looks like when you select a single event handler. So this particular event handler, for example, it's gone through loading begin, loading end. It's the proof of pickup, and now it's done the departure. Each one of those has captured a geo-coordinate, and it's populated it on each one of those on the map. There's also two unexpected events, unplanned event delay. You can see those also pop up on the map. That's one Stuttgart, that's the little lightning bolt over there, and there's another one there in Dortmund. Those are two unexpected events. So it's again showing you visually what's happening on the map over here. So more of a cool feature than I guess necessary, but it's still fun stuff. Okay, so just some comments. We've got the event message details, so that's fine. You can configure what you show, in that little pop-up window over there. The longitude and latitude need to be obviously sent via event messages, and they're sent as control parameters. And you can configure what control parameters, house that information, but they're still sent as control parameters. An interesting thing, the geo-coordinates, if you do an integration with an ECC system, they're stored in different formats between ECC and EM. Also, the EM coordinates that are available on the location master data is again a different format than what the geo coordinates on the map require. So you need to do a conversion between the location geo coordinates and the map coordinates if you're going to use the location master data from EM. So it's a really funny thing. It's an oversight in my mind that SAP needs to fix up at some stage. Once again, we make a mention that planned dates and planned events are not shown. Only messages and unexpected events are shown. And you can almost understand that when we go through the detail of what sits behind here as to why that is. So, I'm going to go through a little bit of technical detail over here, so I do apologize for those folks on the line that are not too, into the configuration behind event management. But if you are, then this is more all the fun stuff for you. On the control parameter, we would basically configure a longitude and a latitude event, as well as the latest date and time. And what this is, these are parameters that are going to be stored against your event handler, which when you're selecting multiple event handlers, these are the parameters that are used to show that coordinate for the last date and time on the map when you're selecting multiple event handlers, right? We configure the fields for display. The display, just the fact that they are displayed, they're not shown on the actual screen, but that's what the Geo-map is actually using to actually show them out on the screen. Then on your event message extension table, again, we're going to put in longitude and latitude. Okay, so now when we're sending in an event for a particular event handler, we're going to send longitude and latitude with that. So now each event has its own longitude and latitude. And these are the two fields, longitude and latitude, that are used to plot when you select one single event handler on your search list. And these are the events that are now plotted on the map to show you sort of the breadcrumbs of where your truck has been, as an example. Okay, so this is different to the previous longitude and latitude, which was at the event handler level. Understand that, so over in one screen time, that those event message parameters will be the ones that are transferred over to the control parameter. All right, but we'll get there now. So in our user profile, this is what's been extended a little bit. You'll see there's a Geo-map profile at the bottom, and then there's a Geo-map maintenance up there in the user profile piece. And all this functionality is doing is saying, okay, which parameters are we using to store our longitude and latitude, and the latest date and time, and then which fields do we want to show on our pop-up and our tooltip functionality on the map. So that's all that functionality is doing. So for example, over here we talk about transportation unit and the vehicle ID. Those are fields that we're going to show in the pop-up. Okay, so a rule set activity needs to be out there where we're actually updating our parameters, so parameter change customers, so that task number 30 over there. When the event comes in, we want to update the event handler with the latest date and time of this event, as well as the latest, so we overwrite the coordinates of the ones that are already out there. So that's how if we're selecting multiple event handlers, we get to see the last known location for that particular event handler. Okay. If we were to do this via the web UI and we were to create an event, then all we need to do is configure those last two fields at the bottom over there, longitude, latitude. We put in those two values, and then this particular event would be sent out to event management, stored against the event handler, and would actually be able to then be visible on the map using that. Okay. Now, obviously, folks don't know their longitude and latitude too, so there's a couple of ways of getting around that. Obviously, you can use a GPS device to actually capture this information, or secondly, if you put in an address, then what you would need to just do is make use of some sort of like the Google web service that will allow you to pass in an address, and it gives you the coordinates back. So you would need to enable that in the baddie and go forward from there. So that's not too big a deal. Just a quick overview, the 9E, 9O, the TM functionality that's coming out there. So they extended the freight order. There's a shipper view for freight order, freight unit, freight booking. There's consignee views from a freight order and a freight unit perspective. So that's the customer view on the process. And then instruction tracking, and I think they got out there the equipment visibility too now, I believe. Okay, so we're almost done here. Won't go through too much, but just again, if you missed last week's session on EM and what it is for you, just quickly some of the use cases that we've seen out there that have been quite useful. With a large manufacturer we helped in the IT microprocessor space. they did a project, what they termed capital prompt payment, which basically tracked their purchase order, procured to pay type process, and when they procured a product that had to come across the ocean, they would have net 30-day terms, but their traditional process was we had to receive the goods prior to releasing the purchase order for payment or the invoice for payment, and typically the product would not arrive there within that 30-day period, so they were missing out on their terms. But because they were capital projects and capital purchase orders, so high dollar volume, they were losing out on millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of discounts. With this in place, we were able to actually use event management and without risk to the company, knowing that the product was on the way and out of the hands of the supplier but in the hands of the carrier. We merged the information from the carrier and what we received from the supplier together with what we have on our system. We were able then to release that PO for payment within the terms, even though we hadn't received the product. Another one they did was electronic sample tracking. So, key products that the manufacturers want to get into, the subsidiary manufacturers out there or complementary manufacturers. You have to sometimes get the product in their hands so that they can develop their products at the same time, but you also want to make sure that they give those products back, or that those products make their way onto eBay and all of that good stuff too. So they started to track those samples and make sure that if they did get into the wrong place, these are the folks that were responsible for that, or if it was time to get it back from them, that we could say, all right, send them a notification to say you need to send this back, thank you. Then the normal stuff, inbound delivery, outbound delivery, carrier status notification is a popular one these days. We've done that several times at many clients. They're all looking into that. We did a large movie studio, again, procure to pay. They thought their procurement solution was just was brilliant, and they were just wanting to track their, the suppliers and just keep an eye on things. And when we went live, we realized they had about 100% miss from their suppliers. So whatever they ordered, they sent to the PO. Every single PO came back with a change of some sort, whether it was the date, the quantity, even the product. It was a complete shambles. But without that visibility, they never knew. So it's enlightening. I'll go through one more. Kips Aviation was a startup company. They just wanted the very simplest thing. I said, we have 6 warehouses out there, and our plane goes through each warehouse through the different stage as it gets built, right through to the last stage of quality. And the CEO basically said, all I want to know is which plane's in which hangar at what time, from a dashboard perspective. 3 days later, after even training the team and stuff like that, but during the training, I used that actual scenario just to implement that functionality for them, and after 3 days, they had that functionality, and then we left. If you're interested in more information on event management, go to our website, as I mentioned, keydatausa.com. We have a specific session out there on event management. There's a white paper on it too. We have a WordPress blog on that. There's the Facebook page has probably got the most information out there, so Facebook/SAP Event Management. And for those of you who don't have anything to do in the evenings, we have a book out there too, so you can go. The best place to get that, best prices out, genipress.com/qdata. Otherwise, just go to Amazon too, but it's a bit cheaper out there on Genipress. So if you have any questions, now's the time. Again, I want to extend that to the folks that are on the line. I see there's quite a few of you. If you are interested in having a look at, you probably know if your screen, if you've already got it, what 7.0 looks like, we can certainly give it to you. And if you're interested in, I can also give you the controls and you can take it over, but we need to do that over a more secure network than it is here at the hotel that I'm at. So if there's no questions, I'll give you another minute before that, and I'll just thank you for your time. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to maybe talking to you next week if I'm the lucky one to give next week's webinar. All right, no questions. I thank you for your time. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.